Hello everyone and welcome back to my F1 2019 career mode for the US Grand Prix in Season 2. So, last episode, spoiler alert, pause the video and go watch it if you don't want to hear it, but you've had enough time now, and we wrapped up the Drivers' Championship, and obviously the episode before that we wrapped up the Constructors. So these last three races of the season, US, Brazil and Abu Dhabi, are just for fun. We got upgrades on the car, it's going to be a fully drag race. So there is nothing stopping us from hopefully having a good time today. But we have to select a new rival, so we're going to go with Max Verstappen. He's been the most consistent of the non-racing point drivers of myself and Leclerc, who had some bad luck last time out. But anyway, you can see on the R&D chart we have just about the same gap to second as second does to ninth, so that is quite ridiculous. Alfa Romeo looking quite slow on the chart, but you can see the upgrades going on the car, and we're nearing the end of all the trees barring some ultimate upgrades. But anyway, let's get into qualifying and see how we go.
It's time for today's qualifying session to begin here in the United States. Welcome to the Circuit of the Americas. It always looked like the kind of track that asks an awful lot of the rear tyres, such as the frequency of low-speed exits.
No matter how good a driver is at managing their throttle application to limit rear slip, they can't always overcome a car that's inherently bad at looking after its rear tyres. Here we have a lot of low-speed corner exits, which means a whole load of energy, heat and tyre wear.
So we move on to the end of Q1, and I will admit I simulated practice this time, which I immediately regretted, down in 15th position in qualifying with having no practice, so I won't be doing that again. But I did it really because I'm just not a big fan of this circuit. But we do get through just about in Q2 as well, down in P10, so things really didn't go well for us in the first two sessions. But the point is, the good thing is we did get into Q3. So here we go in Q3, a little bit of practice under our belts now around Circuit of the Americas in this Season 2 car, which is nearing to be fully maxed out. And I'll be honest, I'm not too happy about it. I just didn't like the general feeling of these faster cars. For some reason, I just couldn't get the same rhythm that I had in the Season 1 car. So hopefully that will be something different in F1 2020, but that's unique to me. I know a lot of people love the maxed out career mode cars, but personally I prefer the one that we had last season. But anyway, we'll ignore that and just do the best job we can in Q3. And into the braking zone here in qualifying, there was no visibility, and that was what was costing me a lot of time. But we got the braking zone fairly close to accurate there, and then missed the apex of the next corner, so that would cost us a little bit of time. But we'll see what we can do. Running wide there in the last sector, and now through this flat out right-hander. I love this corner, it is absolutely awesome. And now just the last two corners. Again, this final corner, absolutely no visibility of the braking point. But we come through to complete the lap, and it is the fastest yet, but there will be plenty more laps to come.
Qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Leclerc, Hamilton and the scientist. With qualifying complete, all that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
So Hamilton splits us in P2, Gasly gets a good qualifying up in 4th, but anyway, we'll move on to the race and try to make up for it.
In 2012, America's on-again, off-again love affair with Formula One finally seemed to settle down with the completion of this wonderful racing facility here in Texas. Since then, we've been treated to some incredible races, including, of course, that classic wet-dry championship decider of 2015. We're racing today then in Travis County, Texas, around the 20 corners of the wonderful Circuit of the Americas. We'll be reaching speeds of around 200 miles an hour, and there are plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the two DRS zones into turn 1 and the very long back straight into turn 12. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event. Let's talk about the scientist. They've had a fantastic campaign. It's been a wonderful year, and they come into this weekend's Grand Prix as a fully deserving champion.
I agree it's been a truly impressive season, but championship or no, I don't think they'll be gently cruising around to the finish line. In fact, with points no longer a concern, there's a lot less to risk, so we may even see a more aggressive approach.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have the scientist, Verstappen, Devon Butler and Norris, Vettel, Albon, Perez and Daniel Ricciardo, Stroll, Magnussen, George Russell and Raikkonen, Bottas, Gasly, Lucas Faber. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Antonio Giovinazzi, Hülkenberg and Daniel Kvyat completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Okay, you can brake late into one because of the incline. It's a slow corner though, so make sure you stay out of trouble. Good luck.
So strategy looks like it will be either a 2-stop or a 3-stop. We'll have a look at the different options, but 2 softs to mediums seems to be the way to go. And I think a lot of other teams will try the 3-stop because it does seem to be somewhat viable. But here we go, the 5 red lights and away we go for the US Grand Prix. It's a great start by Lewis Hamilton on the inside line, and he's going to sweep through and take the lead into the first corner, much like we did way back in Spain in episode 5 of this season. But we get overtaken by Verstappen through turns 1 and 2, and there's not really a lot we can do about that. We just have to slot in behind and try to make up for it in the rest of the lap. You can see we definitely have the mid-corner speed versus that Red Bull car, and taking a few liberties with the track limits through the opening sector, and that is a sector I had a lot of trouble with throughout this race. But we're not really having a good run of things so far. We've got the Haas car of Devon Butler right behind us, so I'm not sure if Gasly had a grid penalty or if he's just dropped off at the start, but that is unfortunate for him either way. But it is Devon Butler, the Haas, right behind us. But we see we're a long way back behind Verstappen. We have the straight line speed advantage, so we're faster than the Red Bull in just about every way. But both myself and Leclerc struggling to overtake Verstappen and Hamilton respectively, as we run a little bit wide there through the middle sector.
That start was okay. Now stay alert for threats around you.
Or final sector, I believe it is at that point. But anyway, we do get through the first lap cleanly, and now we can just try to focus on the rest of the race. No damage done to the car, just a bad start, so we'll try to push on and try to catch up to Max Verstappen. So as we
The battery is low on energy. Reduce ERS deployment.
continue on, we are low on battery, but it doesn't matter, we've got the DRS, and finally we're going to make the move on Max Verstappen a few laps into this race. But it's easy enough. We go back to the racing line and take the corner as normal, and Charles Leclerc though still hasn't overtaken Lewis Hamilton. But Max Verstappen is going to come back at us down the inside into the first corner. We're going to try and hold it and do a switch back to the inside, but it doesn't quite work. We're going to have a look around the outside, and it actually might work as we go a little bit off circuit to take the corner and make sure we don't make any contact, but we do squeeze through ahead of Max Verstappen, and that was a very awkward move to make around the outside to the inside of the sort of Maggots and Beckett style section. But nowhere near as good as the real Maggots and Becketts. But we go for a big slide there on the exit through the third sector, and Verstappen finds his way back through. We switch back to the right hand side. Verstappen hits us off the road as we go sailing around the outside. Don't quite pull it off though, and Verstappen has the upper hand once again, but we're going to come back at him to the end of the back straight down the inside. Verstappen locks up. We may have given him a small hit there, but we managed to both control the cars and live to fight another day. Yeah, so we move on again. We've got a much better run of Verstappen this time to the inside, and we should get this done easy as you like, down the inside, and nice and calm to the apex of the corner, and
Fuel target is +1. Faster engine modes are
we get the move done. But fuel was not an issue. We had fuel just pouring into the car, it seemed, and I had to run in rich a lot more than I ever normally would in this race, just to burn it off. But we get a mechanical failure for the Williams of George Russell, with Alex Albon passing there in the foreground. So unfortunate for George, as the Alfa Romeos and everyone else.
Caution. The virtual safety car is out.
Good.
Virtual safety car is ending. Maintain your pace until the green flag. VSC ending. Wait for green.
But we go into the pits right as the VSC ends, so if we did save time, it will only be the smallest amount. But we're actually going to switch up the strategy here in box onto the medium tyres, which is something I very rarely do mid-race. But we decided to mix things up in this one, and we'll go for the softs at the end. And really, I'm banking on a late safety car or something like that.
Okay, you only have to stop once now.
Because I'm realizing that I just don't have the pace in this race at the moment. So yeah, we're just going to try to fight on in the later stages, and I'll use the soft tyres when I guess I'm most in sync with the track and the car towards the end of the race. But we're under attack from the Red Bull.
Slot in behind and try to keep up with them. There might be an opportunity to take a place back.
We try to send it down the inside, doesn't work out for us though, and Max Verstappen's through.
Give that position back. That was an illegal overtake.
And illegal overtake on Butler, which is fair enough. We did run very wide at the end of the straight, and we're just going to keep sinking like an absolute rock in this race, as now the Ferraris are getting involved. Sebastian Vettel goes past, and now we're losing a position to Lando Norris, as he goes down the inside. And yeah, nothing we can really do to fight back against these guys. They're all on the faster tyres. Some of them are on 3 stops, some are on 2 stops. So given that Norris is pitting right there, I assume he is on a 2 stop, as we continue on our medium tyres for quite a way in this race until our final stop onto the softs. And we just need to just keep pushing basically, and just try to make something of this race. And we won't really know where we will finish until we cross the line, as the Ferrari goes down the inside of Sergio Perez. So we're continuing to lose ground in this race, but I'm hoping we can make it all back on the soft tyres later. But it looks pretty grim at the moment, as now Butler passes us once again after making another pit stop. So eventually though, it does come time for our final pit stop, and hopefully we'll see the exact reverse of everything that we just saw in the last series of clips, and it'll be us doing the overtaking in the late stages here.
Exit now.
So out of the pits we go on some brand new soft tyres, or at least very fresh soft tyres.
That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops.
I believe they're new, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, we start straight away putting pressure around the outside of Pierre Gasly. Doesn't work out for us though. We get a good run on the exit. Can we look around the outside of turn 2? Not going to happen for us. And we're just going to slot in behind through the entire first sector. This is really going to burn a lot of time sitting behind him here. And this is sort of just wasting our brand new tyres, which is really frustrating. But just be patient and see what we make of it, because in the grand scheme of things we'll lose a second or 2 at the most, and that might not really have a big effect on the result. So try and look at the big picture here. But we get a nice exit out of the hairpin at the start of the straight. DRS open on the run along this massive back straight past the Ferris wheel, and we're going to have a look for a move around the outside of Pierre Gasly, down the outside, and we're going to sweep around. But Gasly very strong on the inside line, and he actually maintains the position as we have a look to the outside here, but doesn't work out for us. and at this point I just thought, why not just send it down the inside. But Gasly very smartly brakes early, gets a switchback, but that'll give us the inside line for this right-hander, this triple right-hander in the final sector, and we managed to sweep through and take the position, and we can carry so much speed through that triple right-hander compared to the other cars. It is quite ridiculous how much downforce we have in comparison to everyone else through there. But moving on again, we catch up to Lando once again, and we're going to make a move to the right hand side, down the outside of Lando Norris, and we're going to sweep around this time and go to the inside, and we should get through here just about ahead of Lando Norris, and there's no way you can hold it around the outside there. As we found out, now down the inside of the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel, we do that, and we get a very awkward line on the exit. We
Nice move. Good job.
may have given him a hit, but we didn't break our front wing, so that's what's important, as we're still drag racing him side by side, but we do get the position by the time we enter the braking zone of the hairpin at the end of the straight, and we can push on.
Butler is ahead of you. Okay, gap ahead is 12.7 seconds. 13 laps to go. Gap to car in front is 10.9 seconds.
So we were catching Devin Butler, but eventually he made a pit stop. He's still ahead of us actually at this point as we overtake Daniel Ricciardo, but that's something I can spoil,
The car ahead is 7.2 seconds.
because that was a bit anticlimactic for me catching Devin Butler at a rate of knots, but he makes his final pit stop in this race, so that ruined that battle for us. But you'll notice incidentally we're back up into P5 in this race, so things aren't looking too bad. And now Perez is in the pit lane for his final stop. He's actually boxing onto the hard tyres, which is ridiculous.
Verstappen ahead. Our gap to the car in front is 13.9 seconds. 8 laps to go.
Literally hard tyres with 8 laps to go as we put a lap on the Renault of Kevin Magnussen, really struggling in this race. And as with Ricciardo, the Renault is just
Gap to car in front is 11.6 seconds.
absolutely horrendous in this career mode as we make a bit of a mess of Sector 2 there. And how is that not a corner cut? I will never know.
Okay, gap ahead is 8.9 seconds. This is your final lap of the race.
But we were catching Verstappen another 5 or 10 laps. We probably could have got him, but we weren't really anywhere close. We had extra speed in hand, but it just wasn't enough. If we had a perfect race, we may have had the pace to keep up with him, but there were too many mistakes, and yeah, just overall pace was just lacking. So I can say that from now on I will definitely be doing the practice sessions as much.
We're not going to be able to run in this engine mode much longer. We're about a lap over target. Drop down to mix too soon.
As much as they can get a little bit repetitive. But anyway, here comes Charles Leclerc around the very tight final corner to win the US Grand Prix for Racing Points, and Lewis Hamilton will come across the line for second. But here is us around the final corner. We're going to cross the line for P4 at the end of a pretty frustrating race.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
And to be honest, I'm just relieved we came away with a decent result after all that.
And an incredible win for Racing Point. A brilliant performance. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
Racing Point's performance today has shown that they can be competitive with the veterans of the sport. They're making their way out to the podium now as we speak, and the reaction from the crowd must be incredibly uplifting for them.
So congratulations to Charles Leclerc. He was untouchable today. Hamilton tried his best at the start, got the lead, but it wasn't enough to see him through to the end of the race. Leclerc, as ever, got there in the end. Max Verstappen, though, makes it a double podium for Red Bull.
This result narrows the gap between our championship leader and the rest of the standings. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
I think it's got to be Lucas Weber. Time and time again, he proves that he's someone who can quietly get the job done, and that's exactly what he's done today.
With that result, the title is secure, and it's Racing Point who've claimed the honours. Their days of struggling in the midfield now seem a distant memory. They're a giant in this sport now, and truly a force to be reckoned with. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
So I'm not sure if it really came across during the video, but I did mention it right at the end. It was a very frustrating race for me, just because Charles Leclerc had so much pace and I just had none of it. So I'm going to have to look into that in the future. But yeah, for me, just behind the wheel was very frustrating, and yeah, was not particularly a memorable one until the last few laps, when we were closing up to everyone and making a few moves, and that sort of made things better in the end. But anyway, for everyone else though, the Red Bulls look pretty strong actually around this circuit, and they did give us a good fight, obviously second and third, while I had a few issues, but and you probably see some of those during the highlights reel on screen now, that we had a bit of trouble through Sector 1 mostly. Sector 3 I've always found to be pretty good, and all the sort of awkward corners there I've never had too much trouble with, but you can see there just struggling to just keep the car on the road through the first sector, and that's really what cost me the most time today, and why I struggled so much in the first half of the race. I got used to it more towards the end, but yeah, look, we've got the whole track to ourselves there, that's crazy, but yeah. I don't know what else to say. See, when the title fight's over, I can't even talk about the championship because there's no point. Woohoo!
Great work out there today. Let's have your thoughts. You're beating all expectations. Would you say we all underestimated you?
Yeah, I think, as I've said before, this car is just keeping improving, and Charles Leclerc showed it.
It wasn't the cleanest race today, was it?
Yeah, I had a few issues, and I need more practice on this track.
Some excellent overtaking moves from your former teammate today. Did he learn some of them from you?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in F2 as teammates, so...
I think it's great how much your team has been focused on developing your car.
Yeah, I really need to spend more time on these interview questions so I can think of something to say in all this time. Yeah, we did some massive upgrades this time, and we plan to continue those into the future.
Great. Well, that's everything.
I am a very creative person with answers, aren't I? Anyway, let's go and bring this weekend to a close. Bunch of R&D points as ever, and...
Great work. That's exactly the kind of result I'm looking for. Keep it up.
Yeah, so we'll see what upgrades we can afford this time. Interview with Lucas Weber, we're not going to worry too much about that. But let's see what we can do on the upgrade front.
What do you think of this one?
We will probably go for that engine upgrade. That'll come in for Abu Dhabi. So that's probably a reasonable one to go for. So we will do that. And on the aero side, there's some major upgrades to do there. That will unlock those last couple of ultimate upgrades that we don't currently have access to. So I'll think about those too in future, but for now we'll see what's on the other sides, but I don't think we can really afford anything at this point, so we'll just have to leave it at that, and until next time, goodbye.